Okay, good morning. Wow, that was a terrible thing to say to start a podcast, but once again, I don't have any plan for this. Excuse me. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't have a plan as to what I'm gonna cast about, but this morning I received a text from a very wonderful man, Rachel's mother's husband, someone who's been in my life since I've known Rachel and been in Rachel's life for a very long time. And he's just a great guy. His name's Richard, Ray's mom's husband, and they're just very peaceful people to be around. Very peaceful home. Ray's tree is planted beautifully in their backyard, and I received a text from him this morning reminding me that next weekend is the Kentucky Derby, and so that's what's prompted me to do a podcast. Why do I sound so like why am I talking like I'm hosting a PBS kids show or something? I apologize. Yes, it is Kentucky Derby weekend coming up. Kentucky Derbo weekend, I believe I just said. Anywho, so here's the story behind the Tucky Tucks and Derby show with Rachel. This is the story behind the Kentucky Derby and Rachel's gift for picking horses. Okay? So Rachel's always had kind of an odd relationship with betting. She's worked at several bars. One in particular that we met at is called McCarthy's Pub. It's this really special place in a small town in western Massachusetts, Belchertown. And Ray and I met there, and we lived there above the pub for years. And it was probably I think the only bar she worked at that had Keno. So, and McCarthy's Pub is it's the kind of place that's filled with lots of regulars who have been going there for years, who are creatures of habit and have like ritualistic ways of betting and Keno and things like that. And Rachel is always known for having bad luck. Like, if you handed Rachel your Keno ticket, the juju was that you weren't going to win. So, anyways, Rachel loved scratch tickets. It's very strange because she didn't love the casino. It's just weird. Like, the first time we went on a cruise, I assumed she would want to go to the casino and win. And she did not. And also never wanted to really go to Mohegan Sun or Foxwoods or anything. It just wasn't something she was ever interested in. But she loved scratch tickets. Like, I never buy scratch tickets. Some people do. Some people just do. She had a friend, Steve, this guy who was actually really a good friend of hers, close friend of hers, that this guy Steve that also worked at McCarthy's Pub after my time, and became close with Rachel. And he was a scratch ticket guy, and he hit for $10,000 once. So that, I think, when people hit that were close to Rachel, Rachel bought scratch tickets often, because she was in a cash business and she would go home with cash, and sometimes she would just buy scratch tickets. Or she was with people at a bar who were buying scratch tickets and they'd all go in on it. It's kind of a thing. But the thing about Rachel and her buying scratch tickets that was so I thought was so interesting is when she bought them and she didn't win, it was like buying a Hershey's bar and opening up the package to find that there's like a square missing. She was really shocked that she didn't win, even though like odds are you don't win. Like scratch tickets, the odds are so against you. It's not even, the odds are worse than going to the casino and playing a game like blackjack or even slots. Like, and she would buy these. First, she would, when I first met her, she was buying a lot of $10 and $20 scratch tickets. And then they came out with, she was buying $10 scratch tickets. And then $20 scratch tickets became like a big thing, and that's what she would buy as 20s. Then, towards the end, like the last few years, she'd buy these $30 scratch tickets. Like several, and not win, and be very, very disappointed. Like it would ruin her night. So I did not like it when she bought scratch tickets, just because I don't want her night to be ruined. And, well, anyways, that, she had kind of a thing with gambling and picking winners. So, the first year that something incredible happened with the Kentucky Derby was the first year she ever decided to bet on the Kentucky Derby. Every year it was kind of a thing where she would go to work. It's always on a weekend in the springtime that's for some reason busy in the restaurant business, especially in Western Mass. And the Kentucky Derby doesn't really have much to do with it, but she worked at a bar or a restaurant, bistro in Amherst. I'm sorry if you can hear that carving. I'm carving a spoon. I don't have tons of time this morning, but so she would go to this restaurant, Johnny's, that she worked at, and the Kentucky Derby was kind of a big deal there. People would, some people would come in dressed up in like your, I don't even know what they call them, like the Pretty Woman scene from Pretty Woman, where they go to the horse races and she's wearing that hat and everything. And, mint juleps are the drink of the day, and the Kentucky Derby would happen. It was a big deal. So 3 years ago, I do believe, 1, 2, 3, yeah, maybe 4 years ago even, the first year she decided to bet on the Kentucky Derby was the year. So the Kentucky Derby has 3 races. I believe it's the Derby, the Preakness Downs, and there's one more, and the Churchill Downs, maybe? Preakness something, Churchill Downs, Kentucky Derby is, I don't know. There's 3 races. And the year she decided to bet, the first race, Rachel always goes big with everything. Like, doesn't decide to bet $10, $15. She started looking up who was racing. And I remember her telling me before any of the races started, I think I'm going to bet this year. And the way she said it, I knew that she was going to bet a lot. And come to find out later, she really bet a good majority of our rent money that month, which I didn't even complain about, because first of all, who am I to complain about what she does with the money she earns or whatever? Her portion of this rent money, it's never been a worry. But and she's always made more money than I make. But so she tells me, she goes, I have a feeling about the Kentucky Derby this year. And she really gets into it. When Rachel gets into something, she's fully into it, researching, like, a little bit like me. Like, she gets obsessed. So she said, there's this horse, and she said, and she wouldn't stop until I really paid attention and looked. She said, look at this horse that's racing. The name of the horse is American Pharoah. She just loved that name, but more than loved the name, she loved the look of the horse. So she was really good at like analyzing things you can't see, like the intangibles, based on her gut feeling. So even with fantasy football, I would ask her questions. I'd say, hey, should I drop this guy? She didn't really pay attention to football much at all. But she would say, let me see a picture of him. And based on the picture, she would say, yeah, get rid of him, keep him. I remember one year I had this guy, I had Chris Ivory as one of my running backs, and I was going to drop him, and she took a look at him. She said, I really like the way his face looks, and I did drop him, and he ended up doing really well, like, for the rest of that year. Oh, man, I just carved an entire spoon. It's taken, like, a few days, and then I just got to the bowl, and I realized there's a huge, like, problem crack throughout the whole thing, and that is really disheartening. But anyways, so I have to give up on that. So she finds this horse, American Pharoah. Now, before that Derby started, there hadn't been a Triple Crown winner in something like 50 years, a very long time. And she said, I'm going to bet on this Pharoah. So the Kentucky Derby comes around, and she's all excited, and she doesn't tell me how much. She doesn't even tell me if she put the bet in, because she was very superstitious about stuff like that, like keeping things to herself when it comes to gambling, juju. So I find out, she calls me or sends me a text after the Derby. We're both at work, and I find out she bet $300 on American Pharoah. So she cleared, I think it was probably a favorite, so it was 1-1. Maybe she cleared $300 because she bet 300. And this is all on an app, like she set up an account and everything. So she wins her first bet, the first time she decides to pay attention to the Kentucky Derby. Excuse me. I probably shouldn't be casting right now. I just woke up, and I barely got any sleep. So I apologize for sounding retarded, but I did wake up to that text from Richard. And his text was, any thoughts on the Kentucky Derby? It's this weekend. The reason why he's texting me that is because of the story I'm telling you. And so she wins that first race. And then she doesn't tell me she's betting for the second race. And I find out, I think she bet $400 the second time. Something ridiculous on American Pharoah. American Pharoah wins again. Mind you, there hadn't been a triple crown winner in 50-something years. It's very improbable a horse wins 3 races in a row. But she kept showing me this picture of American Pharoah, and before the race and then after the race, and she was right. It was a special horse. I mean, she found out who the trainer was, found the history of Bob Baffert, the trainer, and the rider, and everything. Bets $400 on the second race, wins. At this point, I'm thinking, whoa, this is crazy. It was a big deal. She was, like, very excited. First 2 bets in horse racing, and she wins them both. And I think, this is strange. She decides to bet for the first time on the Kentucky Derby, and she wins 2 in a row after really being adamant about this horse. Maybe there's something going on. Third race comes around. I find out she bet again. I don't think she bet as much. And American Pharoah won the Triple Crown for the first time in 50-something years. It's just amazing. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. She has a weird feeling about a horse for the first time ever, even considering looking into the Kentucky Derby. She wins 3 in a row. Big money. For us, she put down on it. She cleared, close to $1,200 or something from that year. And so I thought, man, this is crazy. And I posted stuff. I told people, I said, you wouldn't believe this. Rachael just won. She bet on American Pharoah all 3 of those races. And she wasn't the type to spread out a bet. If she was believed in a horse was going to win, that's it. Go all in on this horse. So, pretty amazing story. It gets better. The next year, I don't remember any of the names for the next year. Gun Runner maybe was one of them. I don't remember. But regardless, the next year she placed 3 bets again. There was no Triple Crown winner. She won all 3 bets. I think one of the bets she bet on was Gun Runner. Definitely. either way, she won all 3 bets again the second year, that's when I thought, this is nuts. And, her family gets in on it. Like,